Hi, this is Simon Lane, and I'm here to talk with the Enrons about your new favourite song, Holding On.
Hello and welcome to Your New Favourite Song, a podcast brought to you by the Enrons, where each week we will feature a recently released song from an independent artist. My name is Bernard Dennis and I'll be your host. Today I'll be speaking to Simon Lane about his recent release, Holding On, which is a very personal reflection on being separated from the ones you love. Hello Simon, good evening.
Hi, how you doing? Happy
Very
to
well,
be
thank
here.
you.
Thanks for asking me.
You're welcome. I understand you're still separated from the ones you love.
I am.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Where are you then?
I'm in the south of France, where I've been living for the last 8 years with my wife and our son. And and then so we're literally in the midst of moving back. If you could see around me, I'm surrounded by packing cases and boxes and stuff like that. And I'm trying to empty the freezer and all that sort of stuff at the moment. So I'm due literally within a week to head back up to England, where my wife and my son are already back. So they got back in time and missed the quarantine. And I've just got to go back and just camp out for a couple of weeks before we can properly be reunited. So
you're going to have to go into quarantine when you go back?
Yeah, I will. At the moment, when I first get back, my wife and my son are they've gone back earlier because my son's about to go to university.
Yeah,
and he's off to Bristol down in the southwest. And at the time, we're temporarily stopping with my mother-in-law, who is of a certain age, in quite a small bungalow. So it's just not a practical proposition to be able to quarantine within the house. So I've managed to find some alternative accommodation.
Oh yeah, what's the alternative?
It's a caravan. It's an old dilapidated caravan on like a mobile home park. Yeah, I think it literally is due to be dismantled and to be replaced with a bright shiny new one. But the bright shiny new one isn't arriving in time. So I'm heading back next week to spend a couple of weeks in solitary confinement. Just me and my guitar and my laptop.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to see your family at all.
No, that's the law at the moment. No, you can't have any contact for 14 days, just to make sure that I haven't come back from France with any infection or anything like that. So
right.
It's one of those situations. It's the law, the law. Yeah. You got to. I'm not such a rebel or a punk rocker that I'm going to flout that sort of law. It's my mother-in-law we're talking about.
I was going to say she's of a certain age, so you wouldn't, want to knock her off a bit too early.
No, that's right. Absolutely.
I know the temptation is great, but
so many people say that. If you knew my mother-in-law, you'd quickly realise what a lovely lady she is.
I've got a mother-in-law as well, so I know. I know the jokes are slightly over-exaggerated.
Of course they are.
Okay, so we've introduced you a little bit. You come from the UK originally. Whereabouts in the UK are you from?
From the south coast, so Dorset region.
Anywhere we might know?
I was actually born in Kent, in Pembury, which is right next door to Royal Tunbridge Wells. So that's where I was born. And then I moved to France when I was 8 with the family. Came back when I was 14. Then lived in England for the rest of the time until 2002 to 2005, Ali and I, when George was first born, moved back down here to France. And then we moved back here again, like I say, 8 years ago. And all my family here, that's the connection. Since we moved here the first time in the 70s when I was a kid, my parents and my older brother and sister have sort of lived here pretty much ever since. So that's the connection.
So what took you back to France?
8 years ago, it was work. It was work. Back then, I was working in the building trade, and there was the sort of post-2008 economic crash, if you like, that happened in the UK at that time when the Northern Rock went down the pan and other things happened. And I at that time, I was working as a plasterer, effectively, in the building trade, and work just dropped off the end of a cliff from 1 week to the next. So I scratched around doing a few other bits and bobs. And because I'd had that connection with France from when I lived here between 2002 and 2005, Ali and I were over here on a long weekend, and I bumped into an old mate of mine from here who had loads of work. And so I came to France to work and spent a period of time commuting from the UK, doing building work in France. And then circumstances sort of swapped around, and we ended up moving here, all three of us, in 2012.
Oh, right. So, but then you decided to go back again.
We've
Why?
decided to go back this time because my son has finished his secondary education and he wanted to go to university. And he's always wanted to go to university since he's been talking about it in the UK. So all our interests are over there now, really. It's just time. Another phase in your life.
Yeah. And how does music
Gotta
enter into that equation?
Well, for the last couple of years in France, I've been able to work full time as a musician. I've been earning a living from it, in inverted commas. They have a very good government sponsored system in France with a term they call intermittent du spectacle, which basically means someone who works sporadically within entertainment, and it's effectively a form of unemployment. You declare yourself as a musician, and the government financially supports you in the fallow periods when you don't have gigs. And I don't know if it's the same where you're living. You're in Holland, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's not the same.
And I don't think it's the same. The other thing about France, especially, I'm down in the southwest. I'm sort of in the Dordogne sort of region, so it's quite rural, but it's very touristy. And normally everything happens down here in the summer. 90% of your gigs will occur from beginning of June through to beginning of September. So this system helps you because your work is mainly concentrated through the summer months, and it just helps you financially during the winter period. So on my move back to England, and again, assuming that live music comes back online again before too long, I anticipate I'll just go back to doing what I was doing before, which was being a jobbing musician who plays, has a day job and then does gigs, weekends, and rehearsals music and stuff. Yeah, that's right. And hopefully I'll carry on releasing some more music. I'm in a bit of a fallow period so far as creativity is concerned, especially right at the moment where I'm moving house. But the sum total of my output especially during the lockdown period was this song, Holding On, was pretty much the only full song that I was able to sort of write and record in any form. I have hundreds of ideas. I don't know if you're like me. I use my phone. I use voice notes on my phone for lyric, music ideas, melody ideas, and I have a book that I write lyric ideas and stuff in. But I just haven't been able to. I don't know. It's a mindset thing. I don't know. It's maybe because the opportunity is presented so well and it makes it so easy for you to just sit down and write loads of stuff that your mind just goes blank or nothing seems to come together. I've also had that complication of being separated for quite a long period from, George and I have been separated from Ali, my wife. So that's not always conducive to making you feel like, we're doing. There are other things preoccupying your time,
So we're going to move very naturally on because Ali is your wife.
She is.
And also she is, if I read it correctly, the subject of Holding On.
Yes, yes, absolutely. She's definitely the muse that brought about the writing of the song. Yeah, absolutely. The song came out of, as I said before, not quite so dramatically moping around the house, sort of gently sobbing to myself. But no, we got caught out by the COVID lockdown. As I said before, Ali had been working in the UK and sort of commuting back to France on a regular basis. And the lockdown, she was due to fly here. And just as the news was breaking and people were being recommended to not take flights or to just hang on for a bit and stuff. And we literally had a phone call. She was due to come out the following weekend. And we said, well, let's just give it a couple of weeks, let it blow over and let it clear and then, come over then. And then that was it. And that was the last we sort of physically saw of each other for the best part of 3 months. So it was unexpected and frustrating and a bit bewildering. And because, of course, the longer these things go on, the more you're wondering how much longer they're going to go on as well and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and you said before that you've been in a kind of a fallow patch writing wise, and then you write this song. So I mean, how did that happen?
I I spend quite a lot of time what I call noodling around. I always write on guitar. I can basically play a few piano chords, but certainly not enough to compose or to write on a piano. So there's very rarely a day goes by that I don't pick a guitar up and just play around with it. I'm not a lead guitarist by any stretch. I'm a singer, really, is what I do. I've always been the singer in bands, and then there's been a lead guitar player or a lead instrumentalist. And yeah, so I'm always doing that. And I guess it's a synchronicity thing, isn't it? If you write songs, you have, well, I certainly do. You can never force anything. It happens when it happens, and you just hit a little sequence of chords. They come together. You can probably tell from the song itself. The chorus is the hook. The chorus, yes. the holding on line is the bit that came. That's the bit that I started sort of la-ing over a few chords that came, and then I wrote the verses around it to support that hook, if you like. And that's pretty much how it came about. So yes, definitely, I would absolutely say that Ali is the muse, as she is for most of my writing. Most of the songs, we've been together for 20 years.
Yeah.
And most of what I write, I don't write political songs or I don't write political songs. I tend to write songs about, love songs or songs about the human condition or that sort of subject matter. So that's sort of how it came about. It started off with a few chords, started off with a chorus, and then built the verses and the rest of the lyric around it.
Okay, so then you've got a basic kind of concept for a song which you could probably sing to your wife or what have you. But then, how do you move that on? How did you move that on to making a recording and doing that process? Because it's not just you and a guitar in that song.
No, it's not. I decided I liked the idea, and I decided it needed it was I guess to an extent I was feeling relieved that finally I've got a song that hangs together as a song, so great, I've written a song. So I then just basically decided to demo it, really, just to flesh it out a bit, as is what I do. So I use PreSonus Studio One version 4, I think it is, but it's the light version. I bought a USB adapter, and it came with a condenser mic and a pair of headphones, and a light version of the software. So that's kind of what I record my demos on in my office / utility room. So I have to make sure the dishwasher and the washing machine aren't on while I'm recording, that sort of thing. So I just start off, as I do with anything that I flesh out, just by singing and playing a guide track as often as I can to a metronome, to a click track.
Yes.
Because I just find editing afterwards so much easier if you're playing to a click. So that's what I did with that one. So I just played it into the DAW with a click. The rhythm of it is kind of that slow. It's like almost like a 6/8 time, or it's not really a waltz, but the minute I started playing it, the first thing I thought of, and by saying this, I'll ruin it for anyone else who listens to it, I kept thinking to myself, it's exactly the same rhythm as If You Don't Know Me By Now by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. It's got that boom, da 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 ba boom, that kind of type feel to it.
I remember the first time that I saw your smiling face. My life back then was a dark place. My happiness had disappeared without a trace.
So that was the sort of not that I was thinking of that song at the time. It was kind of afterwards. I thought that's why I think it works. It's almost kind of a nice soulful time signature. So recorded it in, and then I've got a very old Korg X3 workstation, and it's from the 90s, I think. It still has like a 3.5-inch floppy disk as the boot disk, to get it fired up and stuff like that.
For anybody under 30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, back in the old days. That's how. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Google it. Yeah, Google it. There'll be black and white photos. But I used that keyboard uniquely for its general MIDI sounds.
Yeah,
that's pretty one of the only functions that still works. It doesn't, because I don't have the boot disc for it anymore. It doesn't work as a sequencer. It's a proper, in their day, it was a decent bit of kit. But I can access the general MIDI sounds, and I don't even MIDI it out. I literally take a line out of it into the DAW and just hit the keys. So that's how I produce the bass line, for example. So that's I think that bass sound that I used on there is the general MIDI picked bass sound. And I just came up with a little simple bass line. I then recorded 2 clean electric guitars with a bit of tremolo, which is a lovely texture, and it's also a very fashionable sound at the moment. I've found a kind of warm valve amp, slightly crunched, but with a bit of tremolo. But they're very low down in the mix, and they're quite broadly panned left and right. So it's 2 separate guitars. I'm pretty sure I probably would have double tracked the acoustic, because I like to do that. So I'll just play the same acoustic guitar, the same chords, the same rhythm, but 2 separate tracks. And then you can just separate them slightly. It just gives you that little bit of separation.
Nice particular guitar tone.
That's right. Yeah, and in itself, it then gives it a little bit more warmth, I find, quite often, or a bit more body. Anyway. So I would put that on.
Do you just use a single microphone to record your acoustic guitar, or do you use double one?
No, nowhere near that tempo. No. You need to bear in mind also that I decided to record this as a demo.
Yeah,
So at the time when I'm recording, I'm thinking, just get some ideas down, flesh it out, make it. I've got it's my gigging acoustic guitar. It's a Yamaha APX 3. It's quite an old,
I've got
quite an old one. With the oval sound hole, and a nice little onboard. I don't know if it's a Fishman, the onboard preamp on it, but it has a lovely sound even when you DI it. When you just take a line out and straight into it works very well. So that's the sound that I use. Treat it a bit, compress it a bit, and a bit of EQ and a bit of reverb and stuff. But I'm pretty sure, as I remember on that recording, it's just 2 DI'd Yamaha APX guitars. It's quite low in the mix, the acoustic guitar. It's not really the dominant sort of feature, in it. So that's where that came from. There's the clean tremolo guitars are a Japanese Telecaster, which again is my jobbing. And I'm not a very techie person. You'll have to forgive me. I can tell you what equipment I've got, but I can't tell you how it compares to anything else. But it's a lovely Telecaster. It has a fantastically low action. It's very comfortable because it doesn't weigh a ton. And it's become very rare. And it's actually in the years, because I bought it. I think it's the 1980s. It was the first year that they made Japanese Telecasters. They didn't make them for very long, and I was gifted it by the person who got me into playing guitar in the first place. He had bought it sort of new secondhand and wasn't playing it. He was suffering from multiple sclerosis, so he wasn't really physically able to play it. And rather than it go to waste, he said, well, you might as well have that and learn to play, So, and I've had it ever since. He passed away quite a long time ago, my mate Steve, and I've inherited his guitar. It's pretty much the only electric guitar I've ever played. I have an Epiphone Dot, which aesthetically I like, because I like the look of a semi-acoustic. I'm only a rhythm player, so I don't buy electric guitars for their fantastic Eric Clapton or Gary Moore sort of sound reproduction quality. I tend to buy guitars because they look pretty, and I like the look of them. That tends to be my thing. So
Yeah, they don't always sound so nice, even though they look pretty. But
no, there is always that payoff, isn't there? But I just an incurable, vain show off. I like a good-looking guitar. But the Telecaster, Sunburst Telecaster, it's a 1980 Japanese, and I've been told it's quite a rare guitar now because they've never made that many in the first place.
Okay.
But that's what I use. I mean, that is the electric guitar or the clean guitar sound. There's a tambourine on there, which is literally me playing a tambourine over a microphone and then drenching it in reverb afterwards. I don't have a drum kit and I don't have a sequencer. I don't really have the wherewithal. I haven't figured out how to rig up the keyboard that I've got as
a drum pad.
Yeah, that's right, as a pad to then sequence the drum sounds which are within Studio One and stuff like that. And I tend to not to write music that requires that, especially when I'm just demoing. I'll tap with my fingers on a table and record that if I really need sort of something. So
there are no drums.
No, there's no drums at all.
Just the tambourine is a percussion.
Just the tambourine, which are brought in after the first sort of verse. When I write songs and if I'm producing stuff, because I write literally, as I said, on my own with an acoustic guitar. I mean, you've focused in on this song, Holding On, which is an independent sort of release single.
Yeah.
Just prior to that, I had released a full studio recorded album, which I had done the year before, and we can talk about that another day, but I will plug it. And
go for it.
But that was a completely different situation. That was me and a bunch of friend musicians all playing different instruments in this classic studio recording way at a studio local to me here down in France. But when I'm recording these fleshed out demos, if I need any drums, I will play it on the keys of the keyboard. I'll play bass, drum and snare, and then I'll overdub, or on a separate track I'll then play in the hi-hats or the ride cymbals or stuff like that. And then because I'm using a click, you can
you can move the around,
tidy things up a bit. You can align things to make them.
So all of the mix, and you obviously you did the harmonica as well, which is the intro.
Yeah, I mean the harmonica is pretty much the only, if you want to call it, solo instrument that I'm capable of playing. But I tend to play more sort of blues harmonica and that sort of style. So I just needed some other element really, and I can't play a face melting guitar solo shredded all over it, which it could probably use one of those. But so I used a harmonica, and I was really pleased with the way it worked out. And I couldn't tell you how I got that sound. It's a default standard reverb, I think delay kind of type effect, but it has a nice, struck me as it sounds like almost like a 50s Sun Studios vocal slapback kind of sound. It sounds as if I'm playing it against a sheet of corrugated iron. Do you know what I mean? It's a funny.
So you're just playing that clean into the microphone.
Yes, that's
and then you're just adding the effect in the door.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's close cupped harp as well. So it's played in the blues style where you cup the harp around your hands, rather than when you're playing folk harmonica, you tend to have it on a brace around your neck. Yeah. And it's a different technique. It's much more sucky blowy, in out with your breath. Whereas with the harmonica, this one, there's lots of bent notes in it and stuff. So consequently, I can't play this song live because I can't play that harmonica line with a harmonica on my neck brace. I need to. I need to have to
cup it.
Yeah, I need to hold it tighter to my mouth to play those bent notes and to do stuff like that, which is a bit of a strange result as well.
Do you use a specific type of mic, or are you just using your an SM57 or 58?
No, let me think about that. Yes, I did. I used an SM58, and I held that in my hand as if if I'm playing blues harp live. Yeah, that's the way I would play it, and then treated the sound. Yeah.
Right.
So
okay.
Cool. I blew it through an SM58.
And then you mixed it and mastered it yourself, or did you send it away to be mastered?
No, not at all. I mixed it, and this is the other thing, which is quite strange how it works out. Well, assuming you like the mix, I'm very happy with the mix, and one of the reasons I'm very happy with the mix, I mixed it entirely on headphones. I didn't mix it out on monitor speakers simply because I don't have any. I have small, they're quite pokey, but small sort of Logitech computer desktop speakers, but I don't actually own any proper studio monitor speakers. So I mixed it on headphones. And of course the danger with that is everything is so close and immediate in your headphones. It's difficult to get any sort of separation and get any perspective, any distance on what you're doing. But I sort of alternated between mixing it and sort of playing around with bits, and then I would listen back through the speakers of my computer, and gradually inched my way into something that sort of felt acceptable. I probably listen to 99% of music that I listen to through earbuds. I have that's my preferred way. The speakers that I'm wearing now, these are studio, not speakers, headphones. But generally I just listen to my music through earbuds. So I did that a few times as well. I would just listen through on there and see how it came out. And I don't have a facility for mastering at all. So the version of Studio One that I've got, because it's the light version, it doesn't give you the mastering facilities. So it's literally just mixed down. And that's where I don't know if you noticed the thing about the harmonica not fading at the end. So it's becoming for me, it's quite a nice feature of the track. So as the music drops away, as the repeated chorus, the vocal, and there's a few sort of vocal ad-libs and stuff in there, and the harmonica is, instead of just playing the previous riff, there's a few little bits of improv and stuff. And as the music and everything fades away, the harmonica stays constant volume-wise until it ends with a final solitary, echoey tambourine hit, if you like. And when I listened about it, I thought, no, that's good, because it's very, it absolutely emphasizes a feeling of solitude, or a feeling of isolation, or a feeling of, everything else has gone on, but you're kind of just left there on your own with that final tambourine sort of hit that just rings out, and that's the end of your song. And that's why I left it like that. It was a deliberate.
Okay.
It wasn't intended, but once I'd heard it, I thought, oh, hang on, happy accident. I'll keep that in.
A happy accident. And so, I mean, in that case, it does the final product. I mean, it's only a demo, but it's actually very, very good. But does it match your kind of idea, your initial idea of how the song what you wanted to turn out?
Well, no, only in the sense that it couldn't have, because I didn't know what I was working towards. And I think, so, I mean, if you're talking about happy accidents, I could have massively overproduced it. I could have kept adding in. I mean, there's a middle eight break where I just literally played very brief, again, general MIDI. What is it? It's like a string ensemble sound. So it's not just one sort of violin. It's supposed to be a sound of a number of violins, and I tried to keep it. One thing I did do with that is I sort of faded it in and out, because the actual sound, the way I played it attacks quite quite blah. It's there very suddenly. So in the mixing process, I've just ramped it in just to soften that leading edge off it, and tried to keep it somewhere back in the mix, just so that in that phase of the song, because we've moved into a different part of the song. I think for me, when you're producing songs, you've got to keep changing things. You've got to keep adding or taking away, just so that the listener, even if it's subliminally, is going, oh, something else has happened, or oh, that thing stopped. You've always got to be building and moving things around. If you play the same four chord loop over and over again and don't and if things are only ever building as well, you've got to have dynamic. You've got to. People can do what they like. Who am I to tell people what to do? But for me, I like.
Tell us what you do. That's
that's right, and that's
your vision.
So there is some intention behind it. I think it's important when you're writing a song, because everything I write, apart with the exception of this song, I can go and play it in a solo gig. All my songs work in inverted commas in that very, very stripped down way. And the way you do that is by dynamic, playing softer, louder, more intense, or less intense, more sparse. You repeat certain words, you change words, or you stick an unexpected chord in somewhere. So the listener's brain has got used to, I know what he's doing. He's playing, G to E minor to C to D. But then every once in a while, if you just hold one of those notes for longer than you would normally, or whack a crafty little A minor in somewhere where it doesn't belong, it just to keep people's
attention.
Just to keep their, even if it's subliminal, even if it's, because most people, in the nicest possible way, they know when they like something, but they don't know why. But they absolutely know when they don't like something, even though they still don't know why. But the human brain, I'm sure you'd agree, it works in that way that you might not know. It's like I always say, I don't know how a microwave works, but I know how to put cold food in and get hot food out. I don't need to know how it does that. And I think music is the same. It doesn't matter how it elicits the emotional response, but you need to find ways of eliciting emotional responses. And sometimes it's accidental.
I think also part of producing a song as well as you can helps that process. I mean, if you're live and you're playing an acoustic guitar live and singing, is very different than if you're trying to present that through a recorded medium. You have to it has to be fairly polished, because it's very easy for somebody to say, I can hear a crackle on there, or it's it's really jangly, or it's a really hard attack, and that's a very obvious reason for them not to like something. So you have to also make your song, give it the best chance of being liked that you can, apart from all of the structure as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So,
and I think another key with the production side of it is knowing when to leave it alone as well. Yeah. When to,
when enough is enough. So that brings me right very nicely onto the next onto the next bit, which is what's new for you? What's coming up in terms of music or gigs?
Well, new coming up, other than the fact that I'm moving back to England, and I will be waiting to see what possibilities there are back in the UK. I think of, this song, Holding On, to me is still quite new. So I'm quite happy that you've picked up on it, and I'm more than happy to talk about it and sort of promote it and try and get it in front of as many people as I possibly can. That's part of my plan moving along. The album is called Just You and Me and the Stars, which is quite a long title. Very difficult to explain to French people that you have an album called Just You and Me and the Stars, because you end up having to just write it down for them, because otherwise they won't pick up on it. So I'm kind of actively promoting that as well. That sort of released about a year ago, but I haven't really been able to do much with it.
Right.
So I'm looking to do that. So the plan moving forward is to get back to England, to get settled. I'm guessing by the new year, by sort of January time, we'll be settled in enough, and hopefully with the COVID-19 situation, hopefully things would have moved forward, that there will be opportunities to go and play live.
Okay.
And that's my intention I've been playing in covers bands and playing other people's songs for the best part of 40 years. So having the opportunity to record my own music is something that's come around quite recently, to be in a financial position to do it, and also to have the equipment at home, which that's another thing I'd like to sort of work on and carry on, recording some, and hoping that I strike it lucky and get some more of those similar sort of songs. Is that Holding On is very much my style, if you like. I like the sort of acoustic guitar, singer-songwriter sort of style, the I don't know who else there is. The Ray LaMontagne sort of thing. I don't know if you know a guy called Glenn Hansard. He's another guy I'm a big fan of. He, also, and obvious the Bob Dylan, the Van Morrison, all that sort of side of thing. That's what I tend to. That's my personal choice of music. So I'm just looking forward to doing more of that as much as possible, and maybe leave the covers bands behind.
So how can we keep an eye on you on social media or other places in the interim before you get back out of quarantine and start gigging?
You can. I have a website. So www.simonlanemusic, all one word, .fr, because I'm in France. It's a website that was created in France. So simonlanemusic.fr theoretically has all the latest news on it, but there's not a lot of latest news. But through that website, you can then click through. I've got lots of hyperlinks on the website, on the front page of the website, through to my Instagram, Twitter, which I'm not very active on, but Facebook and Instagram. All of my songs are available on Bandcamp as well. So if you just look for Simon Lane on Bandcamp, which is my preferred platform, simply because you get more fairly paid for for what comes out of it. I'm on Spotify as well, and I'm quite happy to be on Spotify. It's the most fantastic shop window, but it just doesn't pay anything to be on any of those sort of big digital download and streaming platforms. But I'm on all of them. I'm on Deezer and Spotify and Google Play and all those sort of places.
So if somebody
and YouTube, there's some videos.
Somebody wants to contact you, then the best place is via your website or via Instagram?
Either or. Yeah, come through the website. There's an email address on there. Go through Facebook and messenger me on Facebook. By all means, check out the Just You and Me and the Stars album, which is on Spotify. I have physical copies. It's amazing how few people actually want to buy a physical CD anymore, I'm finding. But I have physical copies of the album, which I can sell. You contact me and we'll organise posting them and the payment and all that.
Do you not sell those through your Bandcamp page?
Not yet. I have a relationship with Hangover Hill Studios, or Hangover Hill Recording Studio, and Hangover Hill Records are a Bournemouth-based studio who basically offered to host my Bandcamp page for me. So they deal with all of that. Yes, okay. Quite possibly is something I probably need to talk to them about, making it available. I had also looked at making it available to purchase through Amazon as well. And that's all part of the plan moving forward for the new year, is to get myself much more visible, look after my branding, as it were, and just try and build it. I have very few Facebook followers. I have very few YouTube subscribers. It's just not something I'm possibly. I don't have people to take out to look after that for me. I do it all myself. And I'm a bit of a Luddite. I just don't keep on top of it the way I maybe should. So that's all part of the great plan coming up.
Oh, right. Great. Well, I wish you every success. And for everybody who's listening, go and stop what you're doing and go and listen to Holding On, yes, because it really is worth your attention. It's a beautiful song.
Man. I'm glad. Thank you so much.
And I'd just like to say thank you very, very much to Simon for joining me this evening and telling me about his new song. And we wish him every success. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks very much, Bernard. Thanks a lot.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come away with an appreciation of the creative process and, more importantly, have found your new favourite song. All of the songs featured in the show are on our Spotify playlist, The Enrons New Favourites, and you can find all the links mentioned in the podcast in the show notes below. Next week, I'll be joined by Alex Pezeskian in the first of a 3-part series about meeting and collaborating with other musicians online. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please hit the subscribe button and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or the podcast app you're listening on. If you want to help us to continue making and growing the podcast, as well as releasing new music, then you can either buy us a coffee or become a regular patron. See the show notes for details. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.